Okay, now you're gonna press run. This is so cool!
Hour of Code.
The Hour of Code. Todos lo pueden hacer.
Ya programé a code. من 42 خط کد داشت.
Your teacher says you guys are into it.
We are. It's very awesome.
Students around the world had an hour of code today, part of a global movement to show kids what it takes to create the programs and apps they spend so much time using.
The largest education events in history.
Organizers set what they called an ambitious goal of reaching 10 million students this week. Almost 15 million signed up.
This week, I'm proud to join the students, teachers, businesses, and nonprofit organizations taking new steps to support computer science in America's schools.
You guys are already getting a head start on taking over the world.
I got it.
They've been so excited about it.
Oh my gosh, it's working! I did it right!
They don't even have to be a computer science engineer. Maybe they want to do something else. But in our world, this is going to be the basis for everything that we do.
Move. Semicolon.
Look what I did!
It's so beautiful!
When you're building a program, you have to think outside of the box.
If you can change technology, you can change the world.
I challenge girls in every single country to learn 1 hour of code.
Every district should do, every district can do it.
Please help us get the hour of code to every school and every classroom and every child.
And my school's doing it!
Muy bien. Bon dia a tothom des de Girona, des de la Fundación Princesa de Girona. Buenos días a todos desde la Fundación Princesa de Girona. Good morning, everybody. Tanto los que estáis aquí presencialmente como los que nos estáis siguiendo vía streaming online. Para nosotros es un orgullo poder estar hoy aquí y un orgullo en varios sentidos. El primero es poder tener aquí a Hadi Partovi, fundador de code.org. Gracias, Hadi, por estar en Girona, por ofrecerte a venir a hacer una charla muy inspiradora, como veréis. Es una historia muy brillante la que hay detrás del proyecto y una historia que desde la Fundación nosotros apoyamos plenamente porque creemos mucho en este proyecto y en la importancia de incorporar estas habilidades de saber programar, este idioma del futuro, en el modelo educativo, y desde la Fundación nos dedicaremos de pleno con vuestra ayuda a ello. Por tanto, un gran orgullo tener aquí a Code y a Hadi, y un gran orgullo para nosotros también poder retomar las actividades de la Fundación después de un COVID y después de tiempo en un acto como este. Es el primer evento que hacemos en la Fundación después de esta gran pandemia y, por tanto, gracias a todos por el apoyo, por venir aquí, al subdelegat del govern pel seu recolzament. Gracias. Y por tanto es una sesión que esperamos mucho y que a mí me alegra mucho porque aquí tenemos una buena mezcla de lo que es la Fundación Princesa de Girona. Tenemos jóvenes de generación docentes que están hoy en día con nosotros adquiriendo nuevas competencias, una de ellas la de programación, y estoy seguro que después podrán interpelar y compartir su experiencia. Tenemos alumnis de Future Teachers, de generación docentes que estuvieron con nosotros ya hace unos meses, que ya han completado toda su experiencia de formación y de proyecto en la escuela rural, y por tanto agradecer su presencia. Representantes también de colegios premiados por la Fundación, porque una de las cosas que hacemos es premiar la innovación, los valores en distintas escuelas. En el caso de Écija y de Fuengirola, bienvenidos de nuevo, representantes de nuestro patronato y representantes de la Fundación. Y como veréis, al final el reto es para vosotros, porque lo que queremos hacer desde la Fundación precisamente es ayudar a empujar este movimiento de code.org en el territorio, en el máximo número de escuelas, para que los niños puedan aprender a programar y así desarrollar sus competencias. Y ahí vosotros, no tanto nosotros, sino vosotros, con nuestra ayuda, con la de Code, con la de la Fundación, vais a jugar un papel importantísimo. Yo quería compartir brevemente, 2 minutos antes de ceder la palabra a Hadi, que es el gran protagonista, el por qué es importante programar y por qué este movimiento ha tenido tanto éxito en Estados Unidos y se le está dando tanta importancia y ahora en España y en Europa. Claro, programar lo podríamos definir de muchas maneras. ¿Por qué es importante programar? Pues todos creo que lo podemos entender. El mundo ha cambiado mucho, el mundo es hoy en día digital y por tanto hay muchas oportunidades si uno sabe programar. Se van a crear muchos puestos de trabajo vinculados a la programación y por tanto cuanto mejor domines ese lenguaje del futuro o del presente, ¿no?, que guía nuestras máquinas, la inteligencia artificial, la robótica, la industria 4.0, más oportunidades vas a tener y por tanto podríamos entender la programación como una hard skill, ¿no?, como una habilidad técnica que tú adquieres y que te abre oportunidades de carrera. Y eso es cierto y eso está bien, ¿no? Pero a mí me gusta también entender la programación como una competencia mucho más soft, una competencia que al final, vayas a ser o no un ingeniero informático o un ingeniero programador, te va a abrir cómo tú entiendes el mundo, te va a ayudar a desarrollar tu creatividad, ¿no? Yo tuve la oportunidad de estudiar inglés cuando era pequeño y eso, aparte de permitirme comunicarme, como muchos de vosotros, con gente de fuera del territorio, te ayuda a entender el mundo, te ayuda a entender otra cultura. Desgraciadamente yo nunca he tomado la decisión de estudiar música. Soy un gran amante de la música, me gusta mucho la música, tengo una gran colección aún de vinilos, pero nunca tomé la decisión de estudiar música. Y creo que eso a mí me ha limitado mi capacidad de entender bien la música y ese mundo, ¿no? Y en la programación pasa algo parecido, ¿no? Yo tuve la oportunidad de aprender a programar en los años 80, lo compartíamos, en los años 80 sí, programábamos, chicos y chicas. Programábamos con Spectrums y Commodore 64, no existían ni los PCs, y en mi escuela eso era una competencia que nos enseñaban. Yo miro a mi hijo, que tiene más de 20 años, y sí, es capaz de montar un Shopify en 24 horas o una web en 8 horas, pero no sabe crear programando. Y a mí me enseñaron a crear programando, a programar con algoritmos. Luego yo fui ingeniero y eso lo seguí desarrollando. Tuve mi primer PC de sobremesa. No teníamos internet en esa época y por tanto lo único que podías hacer con un PC en los años 80 era programar o jugar con disquetes de 3,5 o de 5,25, algún juego que había en esa época. Pero esencialmente aprendimos a programar y descubrimos las ventanitas de Windows en el 80 y pico, porque no usábamos ni Windows. Y yo, de hecho, en la universidad seguí aprendiendo a programar otros lenguajes, ¿no? C, QuickC, Fortran, y acabé haciendo mi proyecto final de carrera sobre inteligencia artificial en los años 90. En los años 90 ya hablábamos de inteligencia artificial y aprendí con líneas de código a crear en ese momento un sistema que intentaba aprender de sí mismo, ¿no? Algo que está tanto de moda. ¿Me he dedicado a eso? No, yo no me he dedicado a hacer ingeniería, a desarrollar, pero eso creo que a mí me ha ayudado a entender el mundo de una manera distinta en mis distintas trayectorias. Y por tanto, eso es muy importante que seamos capaces de transferirlo a las nuevas generaciones. No tanto esa habilidad técnica, que muchos de ellos pueden acabar ejerciendo como ingenieros o como programadores o trabajando en la industria 4.0, pero sobre todo esa competencia de entender el lenguaje. Igual que nos enseñaban inglés, igual que nos enseñaban la música, hoy si no sabes programar difícilmente entiendes el mundo en el que vivimos. Y por tanto, desde la Fundación apoyamos plenamente a ese impulso que va a dar code.org en el territorio y de nuestra mano, insisto, y de vuestra mano queremos llegar al máximo número de escuelas. Y con eso dicho, otra vez, Hadi, muchas gracias por venir y el stage es tuyo.
Gracias por invitarme y para apoyar nuestra iniciativa. Voy a hablar en inglés porque mi español es malo y mi acento es peor. Pero muchas gracias. I would like to also thank the Foundation and the Queen for her support for education, and especially for her support for computer science education in schools.
Thank you.
Thank you. Should I switch to the... But,
you can move, yeah.
Oh, the screen is switched. I wanted to talk about the importance of teaching computer science in schools, not only because of how it brings opportunity for students, but also because it teaches creativity. But I start all my presentations with my personal story. This is the story of my childhood. This is myself and my identical twin brother when we were growing up. I'm the one on the left-hand side, a la izquierda. And soon after this photo was taken, our country, I was living in Tehran, Iran, and our country had a revolution and a war with the neighboring country of Iraq. It was a very difficult place to grow up as a child. You know, during the days I was living in a police state, we were scared of the government because friends and family members were getting taken to jail for no reason. And during the night, our neighborhood was getting bombed by Iraqi jets. And so I'd spend my evenings in a basement holding my ears, just hoping that our house would be spared from the bombings. Really not a good place to raise a child. And my life changed dramatically when my parents brought home a magical gift. They brought home a Commodore 64 computer, which is slightly better than the Spectrum that you learned on. But this wasn't the magical gift because it had no apps, it had no games, it had no software. The magical gift was a book, an introduction to basic programming. And using that book, I started learning how to create programs myself. And I realized that even living in a difficult situation during a war, I could realize my dreams using software. And if I could think of it, if I could imagine it, I could build it, and I could motivate myself to create a different reality than the difficult reality I was growing up in. And by the time I came to the United States as a young immigrant, my family was getting used to a new life, but one thing I had ahead of all the other students in my classes was a really good ability to create technology. So I started working at technology companies when I was 15 years old, and we didn't have very much money, but that's how I helped pay for school. By the time I graduated school with a computer science degree, suddenly I realized the world of opportunity in technology. I worked at Microsoft and rose through the ranks. I became my own entrepreneur. I started my own technology companies that were very successful, and I've now been investing in technology companies. And so the trajectory of my life has been going from a war to then, financial success, all because of the educational background that I had. And I realized that this background started with learning computer science. So I started Code.org because the story of opportunity in our world isn't what people expect it to be. We have this idea that if you work hard and if you work smart, you can build a better future. But for many people around the world, it doesn't feel like that's working anymore. It feels like the road to opportunity is closed. Except in technology, the road to opportunity is wide open. In fact, there's not enough people learning these capabilities. And the reason is because of the impact of technology on our labor force. Everybody knows that the labor force is gradually getting automated. Increasingly, work is being replaced by software, by automation, by machine learning. In the next 30 years, predictions are that roughly 1/2 of all work is going to be changed or automated by technology. And the work that remains is going to be digital work, technological work, work using whether cybersecurity, machine learning, or just digital skills of some kind. Even if it's not purely digital work, even if it's working as a doctor or as a farmer or as a nurse or a lawyer or as a teacher, it will be more technical work than it used to be. And so when you think about the future of work and you consider that right now access to technology is limited, and the students who learn computer science are primarily wealthy, male, and white, you realize that the future of work, and this is why the doorways to opportunity seem closed. And to open the doors to opportunity for all students, we need to rethink education and rethink computer science as part of school. And so the question is, how do we rethink education and create a world where every school teaches computer science, where computer science is a basic part of education? Now, I spoke about opportunity, but when you think about school, primary and secondary education isn't just about preparing students for jobs. It's the reason to teach computer science in schools is because it makes all of school better, regardless of occupation, regardless of career. It's for better preparation for life. When I went to school, every student would learn how the digestive system works, or how electricity lights the light bulb, or about the basics of geometry. And we teach these things to every student, not only the students who want to become biologists or electricians or mathematicians. These are the basic foundations of understanding how the world around us works. And in the 21st century, that same basic understanding for every student needs to help explain what an algorithm is, or how the internet works, or how machine learning is changing everything about society. No matter what career a student wants to go into, these things are going to be just as fundamental as learning basic biology, which every adult has learned when they went through school. Teaching computer science is better to prepare students, regardless of career, as they think about entering the university and the workforce. And the reason is now over 400 studies have shown that students who learn computer science as part of school are learning faster how to read, how to write, math, or science. They start outperforming other students at problem solving as early as primary school. By high school, they have better scores on mathematics exams. They have a 17% higher chance of attending university than students who don't study computer science. Even in university, they outperform at problem solving. And then finally, they make higher salaries when they graduate. So these are all reasons to teach computer science regardless of a career or a subject that a student learns, because it helps them learn everything else a little bit better, because it makes it more relevant. The other thing that studies have now shown is that one of the top stereotypes in computer science is wrong. We all have the stereotype that computer science is for the math students, that if you're good at math, you'll be good at computer science and at computer programming. Studies now show that being good at languages is 8 times more important than being good at math, which also means that in countries or regions or communities where people are growing up bilingual, those are the countries that should be leading in technology. And it's very ironic that the United States or China, 2 countries that are primarily speaking one language, are creating so much of the technology in our world, where the students that are growing up bilingual or multilingual are not yet. And that is because their school isn't introducing them to computer science. Now, the most important reason to teach programming and computer science in schools is because it's more engaging for students and for teachers. It's because school is increasingly right now teaching the curriculum of the past. Most schools today teach repetitive work and memorization. Students are learning to memorize what's in their books, and then they're given an exam, put away the internet, don't talk to anybody, and just repeat what you memorized. And this isn't fun for anybody. And the students ask, why am I learning this? And the teacher has to explain why. And the hardest job of a teacher is motivating the students to learn the curriculum from 200 years ago. With computer science, that's so much easier because of the creativity and because it's modern. Students as early as 3rd grade can make beautiful art using code, and while they're doing that, they're also learning angles and mathematic concepts. By 7th grade, instead of playing games on their phone, they can make games, and while they're doing that, they can learn physical concepts like gravity. And by high school, they can start making apps and more advanced things. In the United States, students now prefer computer science as their 4th favorite subject behind music, dance, and art. And it's because creativity is what makes school interesting and fun. It is what motivates students. When students are asked to create something and asked, what do you want to draw? What app do you want to make? They don't ask, why am I learning this? It's fun. That's why they want to do it. Because of this, code.org has spread from classroom to classroom, from teacher to teacher, faster than almost anything in education. At this point, there are now over 60 million students learning computer science using code.org in schools. And because of the work of teachers, because this is part of public education, almost half of our students are young women. Even though computer science is mostly learned by men, in public education it's almost half women. And almost half are from underrepresented racial groups. And almost half are students from underserved communities, students who are too poor to purchase their own food, but they're learning computer programming as part of public school. And these students have collectively made almost 160 million projects on code.org. This shows the power of education to change opportunity and to introduce a new generation. And I mention this because the problem in education, there are so many problems that are hard to fix. This is a problem that we are fixing, and rapidly, thanks to the work of teachers. The status today in the United States, all 50 states have established policies to make computer science part of the basic curriculum. Over $250 million have been allocated by state and national governments to fund teaching computer science in schools, and over 100,000 teachers have been prepared to begin teaching computer science as part of the classroom. But this, even though this started in the United States, it is already a global movement. Over 70 countries globally have begun taking steps to teach computer science in schools. More than 2 million teachers have begun teaching using just code.org in their classrooms. And my favorite part, the hour of code, the video we saw at the beginning, if you remember, there was a counter at the top counting the number of students, and it was counting all the way up to 100 million. We're now at the point that over 1 billion or 1,000 million students have done some kind of engagement using the hour of code, making it the fastest spreading movement in education history. This movement has grown because of the passion of teachers. Teachers like Juan Lonzano, who lives close to me in Seattle, Washington, who decided this is important for his students in his classroom, and soon everybody in his school was teaching computer science, and soon in the entire region they started working with code.org, and gradually this way all 50 states have participated to do something, and now 70 countries are taking action in bringing computer science to schools. Now, Spain is at a unique position of opportunity right now because there's multiple reasons computer science is relevant, which I'll talk about, but for Spain in particular, the political interest from all different groups and also the business interest among business leaders and technology leaders is there to make a real change to curriculum. And the reason this is interesting right now is because computer science is at a unique inflection point. As we think about the pandemic and the digital divide from 2020, and as we think about schools reopening in 2021 and in 2022, we have a real opportunity to rethink education, to establish a new normal, and there's 4 reasons why computer science is more important now than ever before because of the pandemic. The first reason is there is a lot more computers. This is a chart from the United States, but in every country, people bought computers because when schools were closed, one of the only ways to do education was through remote learning. And so all around this country and all of the OECD countries, there are more computers available for students. And now that schools are open again, what will we do with all these computers? The best use for them is to use them to teach computer science. Teachers also, the second reason is teachers during the pandemic learned so many digital skills. Before the pandemic, people would think schools can never change, schools can't adapt, we're doing the same thing over and over. In the last 2 years, we learned that schools can adapt, that when there's a reason to change, teachers have plenty of motivation and we can do anything. We realize the power of teachers to change and rethink education, and also the capacity of teachers to learn digital skills. And now that our teachers have learned so many digital skills, they're much more ready to also learn how to teach computer science. The third reason the pandemic has made computer science more important than ever is because the future of work has become remote, which means the future of opportunity is everywhere. In the past, they would say talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. But now opportunity is moving everywhere because companies are increasingly saying, we will hire talented people with technical skills anywhere. These are all logos of companies that will hire great computer scientists no matter where they live, which means even if you grow up in a rural community, if you're teaching computer science, you're bringing opportunity to your community because a poor student in a rural community can get a fantastic job without having to leave their country or their town. Even in places like Africa, opportunity is going to move to where the talent is, which means opportunity is increasingly about education. And then the fourth reason computer science is more important than ever is all the learning loss that happened in the last year. During the pandemic, when schools closed, the learning gaps increased between the haves and the have-nots. And so we need to catch up students. And as we think about how to teach students the things they missed, like reading or writing or math or science, we need to keep in mind that one of the ways to help students learn those concepts better, as I mentioned, studies show that if you teach computer science, students accelerate their learning of reading, writing, math, and science. So one of the best ways to accelerate students to make up for the learning loss is to realize that computer science is one of the basics. It belongs among the basic concepts of education, just like reading, writing, math, or science. I want to close on two comments. One is that computer science isn't just about opportunity, it's about creativity and collaboration. If you think about the future of work, it's not going to be like the work of the past. Last century, so much of work was repetitive, working in factories, even doing manual work. In the future, work is much more creative and collaborative. It's not about what you can memorize, it's about how you can use all the information on the internet working together to come up with new ideas. But our schools are still teaching an education system based on memorization and working all by yourself. If we want to change schools to teach creativity and collaboration, this is a subject that is naturally creative and is naturally project-oriented. And so students can learn how to create things together. And that's not something that you do in math class or in history class. It's something that you can teach using computer science. And my most important point as we think to the future is that computer science is about solving global problems. When I learned, computer science was about math problems, how to write the code to calculate the Fibonacci numbers. And if you liked the Fibonacci numbers, that was very exciting. And if you didn't know what the Fibonacci numbers were, it was very boring. When Mark Zuckerberg was learning computer science, it was about sharing information on the internet. Today, we need students to learn that computer science is about curing diseases, about cleaning oceans, about addressing climate issues, about addressing global poverty or gender equality. These are all problems that the next generation is going to inherit from us, and we need to give them the technological skills because every one of these problems can be solved using technology, but only if we offer those skills and capacities to every student and in every school. I want to close on my own personal story. When I came to the United States, there was a lot of things I didn't have. My family was very poor. We didn't have a home. My mom and my father and my brother and myself, we all had one bed to share, which is not a fun way to spend your 12th year of life in entering a new country. I was learning a new language, I was learning a new culture, and I had no idea how to dress for my first day of school. I had no sense of fashion. But the one thing I was very good at is computer science. And that taught me that I can accelerate ahead of my peers and have great success, and it opened doors of opportunity for me. And if you think about today's young children, the ones who need doors of opportunity opened for them, and you think, what can we put in school that will give them the most openings for the future? A student who starts kindergarten today is going to be graduating from university in the year 2028. 2038. So think in the year 2038, what is the courses where we can start teaching students today that will open opportunity for them the most? That course absolutely has to include computer science. And so we need to think of education as teaching computer science as a basic part of the curriculum for every student in every school. In closing, I want to say thanks to the more than 2 million teachers who have made my work possible. The work of changing the curriculum of the world is really thanks to the 2 million teachers that have themselves decided on their own that they want to teach computer science using code.org in their classrooms because they realize that this is the future and they have been bringing it to their students. The majority of teachers on code.org haven't done this because their boss told them to do it or because the government passed a policy. The majority have done it because they know that it's the future and they know that it's the right thing for their students. And so as the administrations and politicians and business leaders are now realizing the importance of this, they have the benefit of knowing that the teachers of the world are ready and interested. And thank you for making my job the best job in the world.
Thanks a lot, Hadi. Como os decía, era todo un orgullo tenerlo, ha sido un placer escucharlo. Es una historia personal fascinante y un planteamiento de proyecto, cuando lo entiende realmente, también es súper fascinante. Yo me quedo con un par de ideas. La primera es que estamos en un momento único. Como decía Hadi, esto es un movimiento por el cual 1 billón de personas, americano, ¿no? 1.000 millones de personas españolas, han participado de alguna forma, ¿no? En algún taller, en alguna actividad de code, y 2 millones de profesores ya están impulsando ese movimiento. Y hoy aquí, desde la Fundación, tenemos la oportunidad de ayudar a impulsar este movimiento en el sistema educativo gracias a vosotros. Y es un momento único, no todo el mundo tiene la oportunidad de seguirnos, ¿no? Online o presencialmente y estar de la mano de Hadi y entender realmente el ADN de este movimiento. Y luego me quedo con una segunda idea que creo que es muy importante, que ha dicho, y es el mayor activo que podemos llevar hoy en día a la escuela rural es precisamente incorporar la programación. Y es el mayor activo porque eso pondrá en igualdad de oportunidades a los chicos y chicas de esa escuela rural frente a los chicos y chicas que están en Barcelona, pero ya no en Barcelona, en Nueva York o en Palo Alto estudiando. Y eso es cierto, porque les va a abrir esas oportunidades, porque el trabajo es remoto, las oportunidades son extraordinarias. Dentro de las empresas, fuera de las empresas, esa capacidad para emprender o para solucionar problemas globales utilizando esa capacidad de programar. Y dárselo a los niños de una escuela rural creo que es de los mejores proyectos que podemos impulsar. Y me quedo con esa idea que es de Hadi. Gracias de nuevo. Y lo que me gustaría ahora es dar el turno a aquellos que queráis o bien preguntar o bien compartir con la ayuda de Sandra.
Hello, thank you for your talk. It was really interesting. My name is Lucia, and I had the privilege. My name is Lucia, and I had the privilege to do my internship in a rural school thanks to the Generación Docentes program. And I would like to ask you a question. So when I think about coding and programming, there's an issue that always comes across my mind, that it's money. You've mentioned this before and you've talked about the digital gap, but it's true that many wealthy families and private schools do spend lots of money in tools and robotics and things that will teach their students and kids how to code. However, the school I was in could barely afford a couple of computers per class, even after the pandemic. So my question is, like, are we making coding and programming accessible only for a few? And how could we actually make it accessible for everybody in the same way?
That's a great question. So I have a couple of comments. First of all, you can teach many computer science concepts without a computer. And in fact, when I learned computer science in school, there were no computers in school. Even in university, every one of my lectures was with a blackboard and no computers. And so the concepts really are concepts just like when you learn math. You don't need a computer. You can do it with a computer or not. It's less fun if you don't have a computer because you can't create something and see it come to life. However, even 3 or 4 computers in a school is enough to start teaching students, and especially if you're teaching in a elementary school with younger kids, if there's even one computer, and I've done this many times, you as the teacher can start coding and ask the students, what should I do next? And as they're watching you do it, then you can invite one student to come with you and they do it, and then you can send them back and have another student. And if you have a screen presenting just from one computer, that's enough for the students to learn. Now, for them to practice, they'll need their own device, but at least you're creating the thirst, the desire, the motivation to learn. However, to get real equality of opportunity, we do need enough computers so that at least there's 20 computers in a school of 500 or 700 children. But in a small rural school, 3 to 4 computers may be enough, because that's enough for the students to change around and rotate and spend time on it. A lot of money was spent towards giving computers to schools, and we're at the time where we need to not only continue spreading computers, but thinking, how could we use those computers to teach computer science? And even in the schools that have no computers, even in Africa, there are schools that are teaching computer science offline using unplugged lessons.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Cristina, nice to meet you, Hadi. From my point of view, in public school in Spain, there is a profile of teachers who feel comfortable with the technology. However, there is another profile of teachers who not. How could combines or motivate this profile of teacher who introduce the technology in the classroom? How could be introduced the code and childhood early in classroom? Thank you.
So most teachers on code.org started off scared of technology, and the reason the hour of code is something we created was not because you can learn computer programming in 1 hour, but because 1 hour is enough for a teacher to realize this is easier than I thought it was going to be, and this is a lot more fun for the students, which makes it more fun for the teacher. And in 1 hour of trying it, teachers can change their attitude towards technology. Also, I think this pandemic has really changed that mentality, because during the pandemic, whether you were the profile of a teacher who was comfortable with technology or not comfortable, you didn't have a choice. You needed to learn the skills. And so every teacher who participated in distance learning has learned some technical skills that they didn't, and has increased their readiness to learn more. There's an interesting thing we've learned at code.org, which is that we used to think that, and no offense to the teachers here, we used to think that the best computer science teachers would be the youngest teachers because they're the most comfortable with technology because they grew up with it their whole lives. And in fact, when we look at the student test results or the students' achievements on code.org, our oldest teachers have had the greatest success because they are also the most experienced teachers. Because the more years of experience they had in the classroom, the better they know how to handle all the different situations, how to support all the students, how to motivate, how to inspire. And so these are the teachers who had the least technology experience, but they actually had the best results in terms of all of their students learning, which of course you will one day be able to do as well.
Thank you.
Hello, good morning. My name is Lola Rubio, and I'm also part of the first edition of Generación Docentes, Teacher Generation. First of all, I would like to thank you for coming here and inspiring us to inspire and change education, and therefore changing the world. So thank you very much. And also thank you for taking into account rural schools, because I would say we all consider ourselves rural teachers, and letting children have opportunities in their depopulated tiny towns is very important for us. So here goes my question. I'm really into multidisciplinary teaching approaches. So I would like to know, how can I integrate coding into content-rich multidisciplinary classrooms? Thank you.
Great. That's a wonderful question. And by the way, you are the ones who are changing education. I'm the one who's just lucky enough to be able to speak to you, to hopefully have what I'm trying to do be part of how you teach. And in terms of multiple disciplinary education, that's a really great question, because when I talk about computer science being foundational, it's because computer science is relevant to every subject of study. Every aspect of society is being changed by technology. Every field of academic study is being changed by technology. So whether you want to be an anthropologist, an architect, a farmer, if you want to study law, no matter what you want to study, something about it is going to have to adapt. And so education can teach computer science not only as a separate subject, but integrated with math, with language, with history, with art. And that is actually how you realize that this is fundamental. So this is something I've been passionate about for many years, and I've explicitly said for the past 7 years that Code.org isn't going to do this ourselves, to leave room for other educators to create integrated lessons. And after 7 years of saying that and realizing nobody was doing that, we've just started to do that ourselves. And we're just getting started doing this, creating the first few lessons we're creating are to integrate computer science with poetry, which is an interesting combination. And poetry is something that you teach, when you're learning literature. And the second is to combine computer science with biological science. And this is a very timely lesson. It's a computer science lesson around using code to simulate the spread of a disease, and then to simulate, could masks change the spread of the disease? Could vaccines change the spread of a disease? And you can decide what is the chance that a mask protects you, what is the chance that a vaccine protects you, and then simulate, does the disease spread faster or slower? And that's an example of a scientific experiment that you're running. You can make a scientific hypothesis and then test your hypothesis using a model and a simulation, but you're coding that model and that simulation, and it teaches you both the scientific method, it teaches you about epidemiology and the spread of a disease, and it also teaches you coding and computer science, and hopefully it also teaches you to get vaccinated. But all of these can be integrated into one lesson, and these are the reasons why computer science is basic, is because it's changing all aspects of learning.
Okay, now I'm dying to integrate coding into my lessons. Thank you very much.
Hi, well, my name's Amanda. Thank you for coming here. I want to mention the Express course, because it has invited me to get into the world of coding and programming in the different languages, such as JavaScript or Scratch. And the fact that the lessons have been so dynamic and fun, I think I'm now a new geek, a new developer geek. And well, once I started playing with coding, I realized how the programming world is, how wide the programming world is, and how much we still have to learn from it. And well, that's why as an English and robotics kindergarten teacher, I'm making use of other of your projects for toddlers of code.org. So I want to say thank you for inspiring me and all of the teachers about programming and computer science. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was very touching. And one thing I'll say is, which I'm sure you already know, thank you, Amanda. And when you start learning coding, before you start learning to code, most people think this is difficult, it's for geniuses, I'm intimidated, and then at least with the way we've created our lessons on code.org is the first thing you do is like, that was very easy and very fun, and you learn just a little bit, and then you can add to that, and you can add to that, and our hope is to make learning fun. And one thing somebody I was speaking to yesterday taught me as a great analogy, most people talk about learning computer programming like it's learning a new language. They say it's the language of the future for communicating with the devices. But the problem is learning a new language is scary and hard. It's easier for the younger kids, but it's still difficult. You need to memorize 10,000 words and practice and practice and practice, and it's intimidating. Learning computer science is more like learning music because, learning music has its own complicated notation that's different than reading and writing, but the vocabulary of music is much smaller. It's not 10,000 words. And also when you're writing music, you're putting things together and creating and playing, and mistakes are okay. It's more creative and it's more experimental. And for those reasons, learning computer programming, like learning music, is fun. And you can only really experience that if you do it. And I'm so thankful that you're already having the experience yourself personally as well as with your students.
Thank you. No sé si tenemos alguna última intervención por aquí. ¿Sí?
Sí. Buenos días, mi nombre es Jorge Arribas, soy director del colegio Safa de Écija, y a mí me gustaría hablar inglés como lo habla la generación docente. Entonces, como no lo hablo, pues me vaya a permitir que haga una reflexión en andaluz, ¿no? Que es como yo hablo. Bueno, no sé si Hadi, encantado de conocerte, ya nos conocimos ayer en el AVE, coincidimos y bueno, y agradecido de que estés por aquí transmitiendo las ideas con las que coincidimos totalmente. No sé si sabes, Hadi, que en España estamos en un momento de cambios legislativos en cuanto a educación y parece que siempre nos quedamos por las ramas, no profundizamos en esos cambios que hay que hacer, ¿no? Ahora mismo el debate está en cuántas asignaturas tiene que tener la secundaria, ¿no? La secundaria, cuando a lo mejor deberíamos de preguntarnos cuántas asignaturas debemos tener en la primaria, por eso de la globalización, el aprendizaje globalizado, la multidisciplinaridad, etcétera, etcétera. Bueno, todo esto, ¿por qué viene? Al final los que hacen las leyes son los políticos y entonces me gustaría preguntarte cómo Code llega a esos legisladores, a esos políticos, para decirle, mira, dejaros de contar el número de asignaturas y vamos a centrarnos en esas soft skills, como puede ser la computación, o otras cosas tan importantes como puede ser la oratoria o el emprendimiento, el trabajo en grupo, que verdaderamente es lo que tiene que calar en los currículos y es lo que verdaderamente tienen que aprender esos alumnos que todavía no saben en qué van a trabajar en el futuro, ¿no? Entonces, la pregunta es, ¿cómo Code puede influir en esos legisladores y si nos da alguna pistilla para que nosotros también podamos influir en esos políticos? Muchas gracias, Hadi.
Gracias. Gracias desde Écija. You got it?
Creo que sí.
Perfecto.
Public policy, and is there any tips that you can provide so that they can achieve that too as well?
Sí, debo pensar porque es una pregunta difícil en inglés también, pero en español es más difícil. Estoy muy, ¿cómo se dice? Feliz que en España teníamos tanto éxito de tener la atención de muchos líderes, empresarios y políticos para cambiar el currículo y repensar educación. Y la razón que tenemos, que code.org tiene esta atención y y puede influirlo, es porque es una idea buena por ahora. no es solamente porque tenemos algo, solución mágica para influir, es porque es una idea buena por una generación que necesita oportunidad. Y creo que los profesores juntos tienen mucha influencia también. Entonces, ideas buenas van a lograr. Solamente necesitas hablar con otras profesoras y para expandir tus ideas. Por nosotros, estaba un movimiento que ahora tiene 8 años y la fuerza de nuestro movimiento es a causa de los profesores y nuestro movimiento se expandió de profes a profes, de aulas a aulas, y nuestra influencia es a causa de ustedes.
Como habéis visto, su castellano es casi excelente y mejor que mucho de nuestro inglés. Por construir sobre lo que ha dicho Hadi, yo estuve en la presentación de Code en Madrid la semana pasada, el viernes, con Hadi, y Code tiene algo único, que es la capacidad de unir a personalidades muy diferentes con un interés común. Code ha unido en España la voz de los últimos 4 presidentes del gobierno. En ese evento estaba la ministra de Educación sentada con el presidente de la oposición, por así decirlo, con distintas personalidades, y por tanto tienen ese ADN único que, independientemente del color político y de los ideales, se ve una necesidad clara, además de algo que funciona. Y yo creo que eso lo van a aportar mucho. Dicho eso, hay que entender también que Code.org no es un movimiento solo top-down, es decir, está muy bien que el gobierno ayude, legisle, como ha hecho en Estados Unidos, y esperemos que eso pase en España, que la administración local se sume al proyecto y ayude a ciertas escuelas, que las empresas también puedan sumarse y ayudar a financiar esos cambios que se necesitan en algunos centros, a promocionar la hora del código. Eso está muy bien, pero esto es un movimiento bottom-up, en el sentido de que es un movimiento cuyo éxito depende de la capacidad de los docentes de crear movimiento y de sumarse a ese movimiento. Y por tanto, también desde la Fundación os queríamos pasar ese reto conjunto, de alguna forma, que no solo lo penséis como la forma de sumaros individualmente a este reto en vuestra escuela, que eso ya es mucho, aprender code y transferirlo en vuestro proyecto de escuela. Y eso es muchísimo, pero os vamos a pedir más. Os vamos a pedir que os convirtáis de embajadores de Code en España, que os convirtáis en influencers de Code de la hora del código, y que entre todos, con la ayuda de Code y con la ayuda de la Fundación, consigamos también que ese número de profesores, ese número de docentes desde abajo, independientemente de la edad, porque eso es algo muy importante, esto no es un proyecto solo para docentes jóvenes, pero sí desde la juventud se puede impulsar ese cambio, os convirtáis en esos influencers para hacer que el máximo número de maestros, de profesores, se sumen, ¿no?, a esta movida del código, a esta hora del código, que seguramente es la forma de crear ese awareness, ¿no?, de empezar a descubrir que esto va más allá, ¿no?, del computer science, esto va realmente, ¿no?, de descubrir un mundo y de darle, como decíamos, una gran oportunidad a los niños y niñas de esas escuelas rurales. Por tanto, ahí tenéis el reto y ahí tenéis toda nuestra ayuda de la Fundación, de Code, para ayudaros también en esa comunicación que necesitaremos hacer si realmente los que estáis aquí, los que estáis online y los que pronto nos seguiréis o estáis conectados con la Fundación, nos queremos convertir en embajadores y en influencers de esta movida. Por tanto, gracias de antemano. Gracias a Hadi por esa inspiración que nos ha dado, por haber venido a Girona, a compartir su experiencia y desde aquí, desde Girona, de alguna forma empezar ese proyecto de transformación educativa en la línea de lo que estamos haciendo en la Fundación y todo el éxito que en este tour que estáis haciendo por Europa para que el máximo número de países se sumen, y esperamos pronto tener un counter de teachers españoles que se hayan sumado a esta hora del código. Gracias y un fuerte aplauso. Gracias. Gracias. Muy bien, pues si os parece, informalmente dejamos la sesión aquí. Si alguien quiere acercarse, preguntar algo, que se sienta, ¿no?, libre de hacerlo.